A few years ago, I had an interesting experience of running into a death battle researcher, and from what I had heard, getting in communication with a death battle researcher is frustrating and almost impossible unless you had a hookup. But needless to say, a conversation about DC and its scaling eventually broke out in a chat between us, and I was thoroughly shocked when I found out this man believed that the source wall of all creation in DC was at best universal in its scaling. After having a quick aneurysm, one thing he said to me rattled in my brain like an echo in a cave. It was his justification for his universal source wall scaling, something he called source wall emanation theory. But there's no validity to universal source walls, right? What's up guys, it's me Lumos Theromax, and today we address a significant confusion in the community about one of DC's strongest structures and my personal favorites, the source wall of all of the DC multiverse, and a common debunk of the importance of this specific structure within cosmology. This video came as a result of the comments in my source wall video, which I heavily recommend checking out, Cast fans, my interactions with a few different people on Discord, and even that death battle researcher that I ran into that I had mentioned earlier. So before we start, let's begin by slamming that like and subscribe button, and if you want to request videos just like this one, I take those via Discord and payment via Cashapp. However, it's time to establish the truth behind the theory that has so many people hiding behind in order to downplay DC's source wall and the characters who have source wall level feats and abilities. So, as we all know, the source wall is the barrier that exists at the furthest edges of our creation in the DC multiverse. No matter the reality, be it spatial or temporal, or even if it's a higher dimension beyond all of space and time, the source wall is at the end of that dimension and its infinite confines as long as that dimension is below where the source wall is located on this map. Whether it's people inside the physical universes of the Orrery of Worlds or the gods in the God Sphere, all wish to know the secrets of the source, but first they have to get past the source wall to reach the source, which sits beyond the source wall, hence the name. Many of the most powerful beings in the multiverse have tried to pass the source wall, but have become forever bound to it, because the source wall has just been collecting prisoners like Guantanamo Bay since the dawn of its creation. So how do people manage to downplay a structure that has gods, superheroes, villains, and even demons, considering it entirely inscrutable and perfect in design? Well, here's how. During the era of the 2000s, inside the DC multiverse, we had some wildly powerful beings known as the Monitors. The Monitors were beings that were dispatched by the light to maintain the multiverse and uphold the ultimate cosmic handshake that had happened in years past. These beings were descendants of the original Monitor, and although they refused to utilize the insane powers of their progenitor, they did have technology that was on par with the original Monitor's tech, if not more powerful, via feats. With this insane technology, the Monitors governed over the multiverse, and one of their goals was to keep individuals inside their home universes, inside the newly formed localized multiversal orrery of 52 worlds. They believe characters such as like Kyle Rayner, the Flash family, and anyone else like Donna Troy who was traveling the Orrery of Worlds was harming the multiverse as a whole and harming their individual roles in protecting a singular universe via these crossover events between worlds. Although the Monitors disagreed on exactly how to handle this problem, the Monitors had to do something to keep these crossover events from happening. But what does any of that have to do with source wall emanation theory? Well, one solution the Monitors had to deal with these crossovers between universes was to utilize emanations, or the warping of the source wall in between the vibrating universes in the Orrery of Worlds. This is the meat and potatoes of source wall emanation theory. It's the idea that the source walls we see inside a physical universe in the Orrery of Worlds are simply weaker source wall universal emanations, and that all that exists of the former source wall, or depending on who you talk to, only parts of the source wall that is left. Much like most information, there's always a grain of truth to what people claim, and so the source wall emanations actually did exist in this era. It's not actually a theory at all. However, where these source wall emanation theorists fall flat on their faces is that they don't consider anything that happens past the 2000s era Even while in the era where the source wall emanations occurred, it's important to note that the source wall was still seen as transcendental to any of the gods from the god sphere, even if they were inside a physical universe or even in the god sphere, as it was entirely seen as beyond them on a higher plane of existence than them or the Aurea worlds or pretty much anywhere where the emanations would take place. Even the monitors themselves look to the source walls in this era for guidance, and that should give you an idea that it's still clearly seen as transcendental to even monitors. This should clearly establish that the source wall is still a structure that scales beyond anything contained by it inside our multiverse, and even those who have tech to manipulate the source wall, such as the monitors, still manage to seek out its wisdom as it's seen as something much grander than they are. I read a ton of content for this video, including but not limited to Countdown to Final Crisis, The Death of the New Gods, and a ton of more stuff. And a ton was going on during these events as they all tie into one much larger, crazier, grandiose story cohesively. And one of the major events included with that is the destruction of the source wall and its reformation. The source wall being destroyed very well could have been the end of these emanations entirely, as we do not have evidence of seeing them past those events, and that's very important to consider. Also, during these events, most of the monitors stopped existing after the use of the Miracle Machine by Superman, since the monitors no longer governed over creation, since they returned to the original Prime monitor so he could be fully reformed after the events of Final Crisis. Only Nix Wotan was left alive out of all of his brethren of the monitors. Nix also thought very differently from his brethren, the monitors, as he chose to trust the superheroes of the multiverse rather than fight with them as the prior monitors did by using source wall emanations to keep crossover events from happening. So with no monitors to force the source wall emanations to occur, the source wall emanations could not return, and there's no evidence of their return either way. Want more proof? During Multiversity, we first got the official modern map of the multiverse, and notice, there is no note of source wall emanations around any of the Earths or universes in the Orrery of Worlds. The map even specifies the only things past the source wall in general. So, man, that's pretty rough. Want even more proof? During the New 52, Kyle Rayner transcends the source wall entirely, and even affects the source itself by doing so. Something that is clearly established to be beyond the source wall in the New 52, and even more so in Rebirth and beyond. Curious about how strong White Lantern Kyle Rayner is? Don't forget, you can always submit a paid video request, and I will indeed make that happen for you. So become a Theromax Corps member down low, and we'll see what happens.
But Lumos, he could have been transcending the source wall emanation, you unintelligent fool!
Alright, Death Battle fanboy for life. I can prove that by the New 52, the source wall that surrounded Earth Prime is indeed the same source wall that surrounded everything inside all of DC. The same Kyle that passed the source wall during the 2018 Titans run referenced the time he passed the source wall during the New 52 and compares it to the current issue of there being a hole in the current source wall they're dealing with. On the other side of that wall during this event, corrosive white void energies are attempting to enter creation from the overvoid on the other side. The events of the Justice League 2018 run solidify this even further, as when they deal with the source wall and its entire destruction at the hands of Perpetua. But is it possible that Perpetua could have just destroyed these emanations of a source wall? Definitely not. She's the creator of the entire DC multiverse and wished to destroy the source wall as it was her prison for over 10 billion years. Perpetua was considered hundreds of times more powerful than any version of Barbados, the dragon of the Dark Multiverse. To defeat Barbados, the League weaponized 10th metals from the Forge of Creation in order to deal with him. In doing so, they tore a hole in the source wall, the same one Kyle was referencing earlier. Clearly, an emanation weakened by multiversal travelers isn't containing the violent, mad Mother God Perpetua given her status and feats. More so than that, Perpetua's prison of the source wall existed before the monitors had arrived in the first place and started those emanations. So, if Kyle references that wall and it's later on the one that Perpetua is dislodged from, clearly it's not an emanation, it's the original source wall. The one around everything inside all of creation. The one we see on the DC map of the multiverse. Finally, during the death of the New Gods era, it's established that by breaking through these source wall emanations, you hit the Bleed, a mid-tier structure inside DC cosmology. Clearly it's not the Bleed that all the Justice League is afraid of and entering destroying creation, as most of them have traveled the Bleed before, and it looks nothing like the Bleed whatsoever. Even at the end of Death Metal, it was recognized that fights between the villainous characters were far beyond stuff like the Bleed, as they were entirely eradicating the Bleed simply by fighting one another during the events of Death Metal. More so than anything, it's hard to give you evidence for something that doesn't exist in the last decade or so. Sorry, source wall emanation theorists. Source wall emanations are something that have come and gone. No one respects source wall emanation theories anymore, as it's not viable since the elimination of the monitors of nil, and pushing this idea nowadays is pretty silly since they no longer are actively working throughout the DC cosmology or governing over it. Worse yet, I wouldn't consider you somebody who actively engages in comics in the current era if you rep this concept for modern day DC cosmology or any form of consistent scaling for DC out of the 2000s. Did you learn something new? Be sure to tell me something down low in the comment section. Be sure to like and subscribe, turn notifications on to receive my videos directly into your feed, and also becoming a member, consider becoming a member of the Theromax Corps on my channel, as it costs less than a cup of coffee per month, or even just Cash App me if you really want to receive or request a video specifically. I hope you guys were happy with my addressing of the source wall emanation theory concepts, and if you guys are interested in me like tackling like theories or ideas within DC that people throw up or want me to tackle, let me know down low in the description, and feel free to request those ideas as well, as I love tackling a theory or an idea, even if it's something super grandiose or super something crazy, or at least to just give you guys my take on these individual things. But with no further ado, appreciate y'all for hanging out. We'll see you next time, Lanterns. Thanks a ton for my boys requesting this bad boy coming in. Every single member of the Theromax Corps, my boys Gravity Titan, my boys Rockin' Alice, and the many others including Angel Guy, etc, etc. That being said, we will catch you next time, Lanterns. Later.